Delighted to say joining us now, making his debut in McLean's TV, we have Ronnie McFall. And Ronnie, I know you're under a bit of pressure here. You have McLean's all over the backdrop. They're not Met Steel, your sponsors for Portadown. But we're here to talk about the Irish Cup final, which is an event that you have tasted so many times and enjoyed so many times. It's very special in the local game.
Yeah, it's the biggest day out in local football, Aidan. As I said, it's a day that everyone looks forward to. People that normally don't go to games or whatever always come out on that day, and the fact that we're playing Glentoran, it'll be a really colourful occasion.
Does that add a wee bit of space, with yourself? You know what I mean? I know you're the longest serving manager. Hard to believe in Europe, Ronnie. Unbelievable accolade that. But your association with Glentoran, does that add a wee bit of space whenever you go to a final like this?
Yeah, it probably does it. And as I said, normally the games between us are a wee bit feisty and whatever, because we've had a lot of excellent Glentoran players playing for us, and that's added to it. And as I said, obviously it's a game that both sides will want to win. That goes without saying, because there's, as well as lifting the trophy, there's a big prize at the end of it, and getting into Europe.
Eddie Patterson, with limited resources after a difficult time, and we all know the problems that Glentoran had off the field to play as well. He's done well, hasn't he? He's sort of turned them round.
I think he's done exceptionally well. So do you, and I think he's been a credit to Glentoran, the way he's conducted himself and everything else. Everyone knows the financial problems that the club has faced, and with limited resources, he's done exceptionally well. I mean, I think they're probably the best football playing side in the league. They get it out at the back and look to play, and they've a good mixture of youth and experience, and it'll be a very difficult game for us, no question about that.
You mentioned a thing, we'll talk about the football shortly. You talk about finances, and it's difficult to keep clubs afloat in the Irish League. The incentive and the financial reward of making it into Europe, which the cup final success will bring you automatically, it really is it's the lifeblood for clubs like yourself and Glentoran, isn't it?
Well, without a doubt, basically that's where the money is. I mean, both clubs will obviously get money out of the Irish Cup final, but getting into Europe is massive from a financial perspective, because it would help both clubs to progress and probably add a few more quality players and whatever. And everyone knows that without sponsorship like McLean's, who sponsor Glentoran clubs would really struggle. And as I said, it's really massive.
Ronnie, you talk about quality players. You have quite a few in the books at Shamrock Park, haven't you? I suppose it's just a case of getting them focused and maybe trying not to let them dwell on the fact they've got a cup final. They've league matches to play as well, and that's a difficult role for a manager, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. And Eddie's probably experiencing the same thing, because everyone wants to play in the cup final. As I said, it's a big day, massive day out for everyone, and no one wants to get injured and whatever. And I mean, that's the human factor coming in. It's hard to deal with it and get it out of your mind, but it's always at the back of your mind that we've a cup final coming up in 3 or 4 weeks' time and whatever, and everyone wants to make sure that they're available for it. But as you said, there with 5 league matches left, and they're all five cup finals, because we would like to make sure we qualify for Europe before we go into the cup final. So we've got to refocus on that and put the Irish Cup final to the back burner, because it'll take care of itself when it arrives.
You were very busy in the pre-season getting a few players into Shamrock Park, and you brought quality players to Shamrock Park, and I've been to see Portadown play several times this season. You're worth watching. You play good football.
Yeah, well, we try to play good football, and obviously, the three players are signed with the 3 Linfield lads, Galt, Garrett and McAllister, and they're big additions to us, because not only are they quality players, but they're winners. They've got that hunger and desire about them. And they give you they have a strong mentality, and that rubs off on the lesser players as well. And we brought Ken Oman in there in January, and he's been there and done it before down south. And while he's not available for the cup final, he's certainly been a big influence in it as well.
The cup final is fantastic day, Ronnie. It would never be your number one priority. Number one priority, knowing you, was always the Premiership. But you would take the cup final, all right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, our form is dipped in basically from, we lost Keith O'Hara with a hip injury, and he was a massive blow to us, and our form dipped a bit when he was out. So he's came back, and he's certainly steadied the ship, but defensively for us, no question about it. As I said, Crusaders, all sense and purposes, have won the league, and I think deservedly so. I think Stephen Baxter's another one who's done a fantastic job at CV, and to me, they're worthy winners. And I'm not going to win that. Then obviously you take the Irish Cup without a doubt.
Interesting, you mentioned Keith O'Hara, and you just sort of mentioned the fact there was a dip in form. He adds experience, he adds strength, he adds ability. He reads the game, and I think watching him and watching the rest of your team, he calms other players down around him, doesn't he? He gives a certain confidence to the side.
Yeah, without a doubt, I mean, you've just summed him up. I mean, he's a really good lad on top of that, and he's one of those players that managers dream of, because he would go out basically and play on one leg for you, and he would die for you. He's got that experience, cool head, reads the situation. He talks to other players around him, and as I said, a good organiser at the back. And as I said, he's our club captain, and he's a massive influence for us.
Ronnie, from a neutral point of view, the cup final, Portadown, Glentoran, two big sides, and it's what I would always being from Dungannon. It's the country boys versus the city boys. We couldn't ask for more than that. And it's two teams. We said it earlier on. Two teams who enjoy their football. They've got a footballing philosophy from both managers. It could be a really cracking game, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, as you said, I mean, I think Glentoran probably one of the best footballing sides in the league, and we certainly try to get it out and play as well. So hopefully it turns out a decent match. But normally cup finals, for whatever reason, they're always maybe scrappy affairs, and because there's that much at stake. But hopefully, from a spectator's point of view, that it's an open game, and hopefully we win.
Well, Ronnie, it's a game whereby you get into. We're just talking to Eddie Patterson about it too. You get the lads measured for the suits, they get the coronations, the whole lot. You know what I mean? I suppose you need to be careful that you don't let all that off-field razzmatazz get to your players. There's a match to be played, and as you said just a few moments ago, a match to be won.
Well, that's it. That's it. And I mean, no one can afford to lose sight of the fact that we're there to win a football match. I mean, all the things that go on around about it and everything else, you've got to try and put that to one side and make sure that you're fully focused and fully tuned in. Because I believe in this game, you just can't turn it off and on and off like a tap. You have to be tuned in going into final. Everyone fully focused and everyone playing their maximum in order to give your best in the final. And that's the message we'll be trying to drum home to the players from now until the 2nd of May.
You mentioned Keith O'Hara and said that he was a captain who would give us all for the club, and I look at a man here, Ronnie McFall, we've gone back a long time, done many interviews, Ronnie. Do you still have you clearly have still the same enthusiasm after all these years for the game of football? You've done many as a club, but you really have that enthusiasm. It's still there for you.
Well, it's in the blood, and I think it's something like Keith. You're talking about Keith O'Hara. I think it's something that's inbuilt. I mean, yeah, have it or you haven't. You obviously, with all the hassle that goes along and everything else, and you obviously, if you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't do it. And as I said, I still enjoy it, and you still want to improve and be better than everybody else. And as I said, the hunger and desire is still there.
And the fans too can be fickle, can't they? Like, if you happen to lose at home to Crusaders or the Blues or something like that, they'd see you down the street, they'd walk the other side of the street, someone. But now you're in the cup final, I'm sure they're all over you like a rash. They're all chat, Ronnie, you're great, etc. What about a few tickets, etc.?
Well, that's happened to me. I've seen me walking down the street and we've lost a match or in a bit of a bad run, and people that come to face you, and they walk across the road. And then if you're winning, they're all over you and everything else. But I just take an even keel about everything. It doesn't really bother me now or whatever. I don't let it get to me in any shape or form.
I think it's something that's always struck me about you, Ronnie. While others around you losing your head, you've always been a calm, measured, and you know what football is like. Your team's never that good, and your team's never that bad. It's somewhere in between, isn't it always?
Well, that's the way you have to look at it, and you have to look at. I always believe you have to look at the overall picture. Even games that you lose, you'll always get some positive out of, or something that you can improve on or whatever. And that's the way you have to deal with it. You have to keep a level head about yourself. Yeah, I never get carried away, and I never get too depressed. I have to keep an even keel about the whole situation, and that's what I do.
Well, can I ask you then, Ronnie McFall, after all these years involved in the sport, what would it mean to you that if you could win the cup final for Portadown?
Well, I think, Adrian, from we're just a country team, if you like, right? And I think teams sort of from outside of Belfast, it probably means more to them than what it does to the city sides, because country teams never obviously haven't had the success that the big two have had for argument's sake, Glenfield or Glentoran. So it probably means more for the country teams than what it does for those two teams. From the perspective is, it's not that often really that they get into cup finals. I think Portadown, what, in 125 years or something, there has to have only been in 9 or 10 cup finals. So that basically sums it up, how much it means, you know, to the club and to the town. Plus you're promoting the town as well, which I think is important.
I was going to ask you a question there. I've sort of changed my mind about asking you a question. You know, will you win it? No, you can win it. You can win this cup final, can't you?
Well, I thought in the semi-finals, the 4 semi-finals were up for grabs. I know everybody was tipping Crusaders, but I had a sneaky feeling that Glentoran would get into the final, and we would meet them in the final. And you know, no disrespect to the other 2 sides, but I think out of the 4 teams up in the semi-final, Portadown Glentoran final would be the more attractive to the soccer public in Northern Ireland. And as I said, the games between us have always been good affairs, and hopefully that second and May turns out the same.